Islam. I just want to come to you all today to talk about a little bit about the coronavirus, but to go into how the chicken and the poultry has been found to have the coronavirus in it. But when we look into this and we look at what we was told prior to this even happening, we see that it's certain foods that we shouldn't be eating anyway. And it was laid out. And this is in the Christian Bible that most Christians read. And so it's kind of bamboozled to me that nobody's talking about this, but everybody's walking around talking about Jesus and what he did for you. But they're not even demonstrating the acts of him, Yahshua. And so these are problems, and they still exist. And universal divine law does not change. The sun comes up every day as it did in the beginning, and the earth rotates, and the planets rotate, and all of that. Okay. So universal law does not change. But we're changing, and our health is changing, and we're debating. Okay. We're just sitting, debating, saying, blaming people. But we're not looking at ourselves and what we're doing or what we should be doing, and don't even care. And so the reason I want to talk about the coronavirus dealing with the chicken and poultry is because it's kind of like if a child was running around knocking stuff off of the kitchen table and drawing on the walls, and then the parents come in and see what was happening, and the child say, "Don't whoop me. Please don't whoop me, Mom and Dad." And we go out here and we eat whatever we want to eat because it tastes good. You're going to die someday, all that retarded stuff, because we pass this to the next generation. So we missing points. And this is real and it's sincere. And we go out and eat whatever we want to eat. Whatever we want to eat. And then we get sick. We catch diseases. Diseases. And our children have autism. And the women have menstrual cycles that are too bloody and painful. And we turn around and blame God and say, is God real? And we doubt things we hear that we should not doubt. I mean, we know what we should know, but we need to go within to the all-knowing is found within. But then we blame God for the situations that we have. Lack of food, because we're not growing, we're not tending to the land. You know what I'm saying? This is not new information. I'm not bringing any new information. It's ancient to the planet, okay? And we go out here and eat what we want. We get sick, and we say, God, please help me. Help me, help me, help me. And then when he don't answer you, you condemn his name. And say, and we're all held accountable for that. And that's just like that child that goes and write on the wall, knock over stuff off of the table, and says, Mom, don't whoop me, don't whoop me. What reason should I not whoop you? You just demonstrated what you got going on. I just laid out to you what to eat and what not to eat. And you directly go and eat the total opposite and then cry to me when you get sick. Islam. So let's read chapter 11. Clean and unclean food. It says here, the Lord spoke to Moses and Aaron, he said to them, speak to the Israelites. Tell them, many animals live on the land. Here are the only ones you can eat. You can eat any animal that has hooves that are separated completely in two, but it must also chew cud. It says you can eat any animal that has hooves that are separated completely in two, but it must also chew cud. These are hooves, you all. And you could just take it what you want to take it for and do what you want. But know the results. These are hooves. And it's saying split in two. But these are hooves that are not split in two. If you go eat a horse, you get sick, don't blame the doctor. Don't blame anyone else but yourself. You see? These are hooves split in two. Some animals, but peep this, some animals only chew cud. Some only have hooves that are separated in two. So some animals only have hooves separated in two, but they don't chew cud. Some of them chew cud and don't have hooves that are separated in two. You must not eat those animals. Camels chew cud, but their hooves are not separated in two, so they are unclean for you. Rock badgers chew the cud, but their hooves are not separated in two, so they are unclean for you. Rabbits chew the cud, but their hooves are not separated in two, so they are unclean for you. You want some rabbit meat? No, man. Who are you? You know what I'm saying? What are you talking about? You just said you was a Christian, but you asked me, do I want some rabbit meat? Who are you? You see what I'm saying? That's an imposter. Pigs have hooves that are separated completely in two, but they do not chew the cud, so they are unclean for you. You must not eat the meat of those animals. You must not even touch their dead bodies. They are unclean for you. Many creatures live in the water of the oceans and streams. You can eat all those that have fins and scales. Treat as unclean all the creatures in the ocean or streams that do not have fins and scales, that include all those that move together in groups and all those that do not. Treat them as unclean. Moors, Islam. Do not eat their meat. Treat their dead body as unclean. Regard as unclean everything that lives in the water that does not have fins and scales. Here are the birds you must treat as unclean. Do not eat them because they are unclean. The birds, chickens, and they just straight telling you. It's not even another way to perceive it. We just go off and do something that we want to do. And then we say stuff that ain't real and this person ain't real, but it straight up told you. You didn't do it. You chose not to do it. The birds include eagles, vultures, and blackbird vultures. They include the red kites and all kinds of black kites. They include all kinds of ravens. They include horned owls, screed owls, gulls of all kinds of hawks. They include little owls, cormorants, and great owls. They include white owls, desert owls, and oprius. They also include storks, hoopies, bats, and all kinds of herons. Treat as unclean every flying insect that walks on all four, but you can eat some flying insects that walk on all four. Their legs have joints, so they hop on the ground. Here are the insects you can eat. You can eat all kinds of locusts, caddis, crickets, and grasshoppers. Treat as unclean every other creature with wings and 4 legs. So know that in a time of distress, you can eat locusts, catids is Katydis, I can't say it. Crickets and grasshoppers. You can't eat those. Treat as unclean every other creature with wings and 4 legs. You will make yourselves unclean if you eat these things. If you touch their dead bodies, you will be unclean until evening. If a person picks up one of their dead bodies, that person must wash their clothes. Like the corona, you got to wash your clothes and keep the temperature on your outside body, and inhale. It's a video on it if you haven't seen it. I won't get into it, but the corona can't live in high temperatures. So as the sun come out, that'll kill the disease. So that it could just be some propaganda. But always be proactive and know that things are coming and don't be surprised. Already be prepared. If a person picks up one of their dead bodies, that person must wash their clothes. They will be unclean until evening. Suppose an animal has hooves that are not separated completely in two, or suppose an animal does not chew the cud, then these animals are unclean for you. If you touch the dead body of them, you will be unclean. Many animals walk on all fours, but those that walk on their paws are unclean for you. Anyone who touches their dead bodies will be unclean until evening. If a person picks up their dead bodies, that person will wash their clothes. They will be unclean until evening. These animals are unclean for you. Many animals move along the ground. Here are the ones that are unclean for you. They include weasels, rats, and all kinds of large lizards. They also include geckos, monitor lizards, wild lizard skins, and chameleons. These are the animals that move around on the ground that are unclean for you. If you touch their dead bodies, you will be unclean until evening. Suppose one of them dies and falls on something, then that thing will be unclean. It does not matter what it is used for. It does not matter whether it is made out of wood, cloth, hide, or rough cloth. Put it in water, it will be unclean until evening. After that, it will be clean. Suppose one of these animals fall into a clay pot, then everything in that pot will be unclean. You must break the pot. Any food that could be eaten but has water on it that came from the pot is unclean. And any liquid that could be drunk from it is unclean. Anything that is dead and the dead body of one of these animals falls on becomes unclean. If it is an oven or cooking pot, break it. It is unclean, and you must consider it unclean. But a spring or a well for collecting water remains clean. That is true, even if the dead body of one of these animals falls into it. But anyone who touches the dead body is not clean. If the dead body falls on any seeds that have not been planted yet, the seeds remain clean. But suppose water has already been put on the seeds, and suppose the dead body falls on them, then they are unclean for you. You hear that, Islam? Suppose any animal you are allowed to eat dies. If anyone touches its dead body, they will be unclean until evening. If they eat part of the dead body, they must wash their clothes. They will be unclean until evening. If they pick up the dead body, they must wash their clothes. They will be unclean until evening. Treat as unclean every creature that moves along the ground. Do not eat it. Do not eat any of these creatures. It does not matter whether they move on their bellies. It does not matter whether they walk on all fours or many feet. It is unclean. Do not make yourselves unclean by any of these animals. Do not make yourselves unclean because of them. Do not let them make you unclean. I am the Lord your God. Set yourselves apart. Be holy, because I am holy. Do not make yourselves unclean by eating any creature that move around on the ground. I am the Lord. I brought you up out of Egypt to be your God. So be holy, because I am holy. These are the rules about animals and birds. These are the rules about every living thing that moves around in the water. And these are the rules about every creature. No, these are the rules about not knocking stuff on the table, little child. These are the rules about, cleaning up your room, little child. If you don't clean up your room, little child, this is going to happen to you, little child. And every symptom thereof, little child, is part of this root cause of you not following the rules, little child. Little child. Let's read it again. These are the rules about animals and birds. These are the rules about every living thing that moves around in the water. And these are the rules about every creature that moves around the ground. You must be able to tell the difference between what is clean and what is not. You must also be able to tell the difference between living creatures that can be eaten and those that can't. So that's just a brief dealing with the coronavirus, and what we're dealing with the foods that we're eating was already determined thousands of years ago not to eat anyway. So now that we're still eating them, justifying it, and we getting disease from it, because war is food as well. If I can give you something if I don't like you and I can put something in your drink because I don't like you, then I've won the battle. That's just like beating you up, just like shooting a gun. So this is still street and gangster that's happening. If I can give you false food that's going to do things to you that won't necessarily benefit you, then what do you call that? And so if we're eating foods that we should not eat anyway, then we're breaking the rules. So the coronavirus really doesn't affect anyone if we was in tune with ourselves and nature. But we're not. So the symptoms thereof don't matter what it's going to be. You see what I'm saying? In a sense, it don't matter if it's the corona or the perona or the torona. what it's called, what it look like, what it do, if we're not following the rules that are set, just dismissing it, not seeing the point. Because the Bible is not what they told you it was. You have to read it for yourself. Man does not know by being told. Islam. So stay clean. You kill the temperature by stuff over 90 degrees, so it'll bye when the summer heats up. Drink lots of water. Put a lime juice in it, or apple cider vinegar. You can use aloe vera and rubbing alcohol as hand sanitizer. You know, communicate with your community, and this is a reason to get active. So just because it buys by doesn't mean you let up and you don't see what's going on before you. You continue your journey, and you change things around your environment. So I leave you all with that. Peace and love. Islam.